Judge, deGrom, Verlander, and the scorching MLB hot stove Diamond Diehards is on. Joe Rizzo here, bringing you baseball along with the dog, Jeff Healy. He's back. He's back. We're back. It's been an interesting hot stove. Aaron Judge back with the Yankees. Jacob deGrom leaves the Mets, but Justin Verlander is in his place. We're going to cover it all here. But we do kick off the show on a somber note. And please, everybody out there, join me in passing along our formal, of course, condolences to you, dog, on the passing of your sister, Maura, just, I guess, within a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah, it's tough times in the doghouse, Riz. So thank you for that. Obviously, we've always been talking offside, so decided to rock the Fordham hat in honor. She was also Fordham bred, fellow huge Met fan as well, follower of the show as well. So had a lot of fun with it. A lot of comic books during college. Came from Moore's job, a great job benefit that we wish we could get back. But yeah, it's 2 son, 2 passing, so a rough year for the Healy house. But we do appreciate that and appreciate everyone's thoughts and stuff. And like I said, you donate to PBS. You love PBS, so if folks want to be so inclined.
Yeah, and a loss, for directly, obviously for you, for your family, but for our Fordham family and the Diamond Diehards family, there's really no way that you can kind of calculate what that kind of loss really means. It's something that I don't think you ever really get over, right? It just becomes part of your part of your story, part of your makeup. So we dedicate this episode to Maura, and we'll jump in, dog, and we'll talk first about the thing that of course she would want us to talk about, which in this case is the Mets stockpiling here for 2023 and beyond. The big thing was they decide that 5 years, 185 million, which is 37 million a year. And I think, dog, what I really want to do here in this episode is to very, very, very much stress the average annual value for these deals, because I think that from a fan standpoint and from a GM standpoint, that tends to matter an awful lot from year to year, and then taking into account the years as well. So I don't think you should just look at it as, a 5-year, $185 million deal. For deGrom, he's looking to make that biggest nut, right? Like he wants, this is his chance at 34 years of age to say, okay, as long as I can get something that's more than 3 years, take 4, take 5, and just get that total number to the highest that it's going to be. But if you're the Texas Rangers, dog, what you're really looking at is they're making a $37 million investment per year and hoping probably that, they're hoping that they get 5 deGrom years out of it, because if they do, then essentially they just signed, a bargain deal. If they get 3, they're probably doing pretty good, right? Like it's for those lost years that they might lose, whether they're full years or whether certain seasons are truncated. At least going into each season, it makes them be able to plan a little bit better for, possible contention. And then if things break down, they break down during that season. But, if he ever comes back and is pitching anywhere near what he's pitched like for the most part of his career, it's, they're getting pilloried for signing the guy to that deal. But we could focus on that a little bit. A little bit here, maybe.
Yeah, that's a fun one to start. And it's funny, just before things kind of got crazy and stuff, we sort of throw out on Twitter the Verlander versus deGrom and who'd you rather and stuff. It's unfortunately Vince ran away before we could follow up on the show for it, but we're getting to it now. I think from almost everyone's perspective, it was a quote unquote good deal, right? Clearly for deGrom, it was the years and the numbers that he wanted. I think the Mets went and countered with a very strong deal, and I'm not going to get to the whole like, oh, we can call back. I mean, they knew the numbers, right? This wasn't a surprise and stuff. They knew, his side knew that the Mets weren't going to go to X level, whatever. So I'm not going to go. I think it's wrong. People are going out against deGrom and stuff. I mean, he's got to do what he's got to do, and and the Mets, had kind of drawn a line on it. I think he kind of touched on it. The typical deGrom year. And the real question is, what is that? Right? Is it an unbelievable guy who throws 108 innings for you and is the best pitcher in baseball? Which we've seen the last 3 or 4 years. Is the guy who gives you unbelievable pitching but gives you 6 starts and maybe you win 3 or 4? In which case, it's that's pretty expensive on that. I think we talked about was the last 3 years. I mean, obviously you got COVID mixed in there and whatnot, but the last 3 years is a year, right? And if that's what happens to the Rangers, I think it's a disaster. So the real question is the health, and that's why I'm normally I'm not as anti-year as you are on this, but I do think in the deGrom one, I think it really does matter. 2 years 100 for deGrom was one. I'd rather take that bet on deGrom than like 5-187, because he could finally have that UCL finally do a snapperoo, and that could be it. People don't forget, a couple years ago he had the torn UCL. It never got fixed. Right now, pitchers can pitch it and so forth.
Neither did Tanaka's. He never
Agree.
needed it. He never needed it.
Agree, but that's a big to put on a guy you're paying 5.87, and has had other injuries along the way. And again, who knows? Maybe he's just been kind of snake bit with it or whatever. But I think that makes that contract very, I'm going to call it questionable, honestly. On the Rangers side, I'm not entirely sure. It's a statement contract. The problem is, I'm not sure they're in position to make that statement, right? So they go out and do that to win the wild card, and then hope that he, bridges you through and gets you to leap over the Astros or something. I don't know. I don't think it's a. If it's one thing if the Dodgers come in and offer that kind of dough, or like some other team came in and offer that kind of dough, but it sort of seems like a real statement one. And to me, the statement is going to be, we're going to lose a lot of money and not necessarily put us over the top. Like, this is an over the top move, and that is really bringing this team to, maybe middle of the road, maybe slightly above middle of the road competitiveness. So it's either going to be the first of a lot of moves, or the first of or the last moves of a real spiral of the organization.
Well, it's the big move, right? Like, it's the last big move that they really have to make, because they got
that they can
Semien
make,
Seager, right? Well,
Yeah.
Who knows? I mean, new park, new ownership. They want to win. They're throwing money at it. So what it starts to come down to is, what are they spending on each of those guys per year, and for how long? So for the short term, it's going to be a win, because they're going to be better, or way better than they would have been otherwise, or just waiting. It's a crapshoot, seeing who's going to develop, what bargains you're going to get. That's a tough road to hoe either way. I mean, it's great if you could be crappy for 7 years and, do great in the drafts with high picks, and now you got to win a draft lottery. But that's getting now a little bit maybe harder and harder to do.
Yep.
Because even when you could keep these guys, you can't even keep them for that long. So why not go this way? And why not, if you're these teams, just, I guess, if so many other of these contracts are being signed, why not take a shot and just do it? I still don't love it. I have to say, I still don't love it, but I will say this. I am one of the, I don't know, dog. I think I might be the only one. Like, if I'm a Texas fan, I just don't think that it was a bad move at all to sign him. I think it totally was the right move, actually, because you weren't going to get him otherwise. Like, and if you weren't going to get him, then where were you going to be? Like now he's a very, very clear number one. And you have a good number two in John Gray, and you have Jack Leiter and Kumar Rocker on the way. And like, let's say that deGrom is limited in the amount of starts that he could make over these 5 years. What about all the mentoring that he could do for Leiter and Rocker? Like, I mean, he's kind of like, I would think, a pretty good guy to have, teaching these power pitchers like, hey, power is excellent. And look, you could use your power to cut the holes in these guys' swings because everybody has this crazy uppercut. The other thing I don't hate about the deal for Texas is, like, let's just look at Justin Verlander's 5 years starting from 2017 when he got traded to the Astros, right? Like, he went through the roof. He ended up getting a World Series ring with that team. Of course, he didn't actually have a win in the World Series until this year. He was 0-6, but that was just, a dichotomy, I guess.
Yeah.
The rest of his playoff record was very, very good, especially against the Yankees, which was kind of the most important team that he needed to be good against, right? So if you like, Verlander 2017 is like almost the exact guy that deGrom is right now in terms of like age and, question marks about his future. Like, the Tigers had question marks about him. He had, a few down years in there, and, deGrom's had these couple of down years. But in that time since, does anybody talk about the fact that Justin Verlander missed 2 years? Like, he pitched 6 innings and then none before this year. So
yeah, but he was sort of never. I mean, I would counter with in terms of the kind of pitcher and everything, that Verlander had never been hurt prior to his Tommy John. He had his Tommy John, came back and proved it this year. Came out and had threw 175 innings, right? So I mean, you look even in the years like setting up there, he has 250, 231, 218, 206, 133, and 15. There's something on there. 227, 206, so 172, and then he gets traded within, hold on, make me do math here. 206 innings when he's, picking up the part where he got traded to the Astros. So, I mean,
right, but the key that you mentioned is 133, right? That was in 2015.
Yeah.
He was 32. That was his age 32 season, we should say, right?
Yeah.
And there, if you also look at the previous year, his ERA went up, almost a full run from 2012. So in 2012, his ERA was 2.64. In 2013, that was his 30-year-old season. His ERA went to 3.46. And in 2014, his ERA went to 4.54. So he was jumping by 0.8 and then 0.9, over a run.
Yeah.
Over a run. So his ERA went up almost 2 runs in his age 31 and 30 season combined. And then in 2015, now he's hurt and he makes 20 starts. So you have questions. He comes back in 2016 and
3.38 ERA, by the way.
Yeah. So
in the hurt season.
In the hurt season, but he was hurt. So like, you saw a decline in performance, and then maybe you figure, okay, he's trying to, hold back Father Time, and now he gets hurt doing it. But they get the 34 starts, then they get the 28 starts and trade him to Houston, and he pitches great for the Astros, right? And they win the World Series. He pitches great for the Astros in 2018. He pitches great for the Astros in 2019. And then in his, he makes 1 start in the COVID year, and he misses that year and the next year. So and he comes back, and he's got Cy Young form this past year at age 39. So he's age 39, and if you were Texas right now, and I told you that you were going to get out of Jacob deGrom over the next 5 years, well, I'll tell you what.
Three of the
Hold
5 years throwing 200 innings. Yeah, I'd be freaking dancing if I'm Texas.
Hold on. How about this? I got it. Thanks to Baseball Reference is great.
So,
If I told you over the next 5 years of this deal that deGrom was only going to make 130 starts and he was only going to pitch 824 innings, but he was going to go 71-27 with a 2.59 ERA and 1,001 strikeouts and 824 innings with an ERA plus of 166. Like, you would sign for that right now. You'd be like, wait, okay, so he's going to miss 2 years, but he's going to do that in his age 34 to 39 season. Yes, I will. At 37 million a year. Okay. It's, yeah, you know what? I'm going to take it. I'm going to take it. So who's to say that, that's if he only pitches 3 of the years to that level. And if deGrom's in there, he's going to pitch to that level, because even with the injuries,
is he going to pitch 1 of the years? I mean, that's his problem. I mean, it's all about the health. Remember that's why I think the comparison breaks down. Is that, honest to God, if he throws 180 to 200 innings, like, he's going to be like the MVP and win the Cy Young, right? I mean, he's going to be unbelievable for that. But is he? I mean, it's several years removed since he's done that. So that's the real question on it. And I just sort of think if you're trying to build your team around it, like, what happens? He gets hurt like his 3rd outing. Like, now it's all over for Texas for that year. I mean, you can't. It's one thing to have fluctuations in performance. I mean, even the great guys have a step back. We're like, but you got to be out there. You got to be contributing. You got to be doing whatever. I mean, you can't have you know what? He's like a wind turbine. It's great, and he's fantastic value when the wind blows. And the wind doesn't blow. It's just a giant metal pole sticking up there with a huge hunk of concrete that's not doing shit. And that's the problem. And you can't build something solid around that. And that's unfortunately is kind of with deGrom until he gets that injury bug off of him and he starts getting back to consistency of innings and stuff. You can't build a team around a guy who, I mean, at this point you have to say routinely is not there.
Yeah, but the upside,
that's it. I still love deGrom. If it was 4-1-60, I'd be dancing around. I'd have my deGrom jersey on right now. But I think especially for Texas, right? Again, that's a risk that just Cohen could go buy somebody else, right? Kind of like Steinbrenner back in the day. I mean, that's where, like, it makes sense for a bigger market team where if you have Jacob's out for the year, then they just pony up, pay the Cohen tax, and buy whoever else that there, or pick someone else off of a weaker team on that. Is Texas going to be in that position? I don't think so. And that just means that they just burned a year while they're waiting for their guy to come back.
I got one for you, dog.
Right.
You ready for this? Yeah. You ready for this?
It's gonna be a long. I thought it was gonna be a quick show. It's gonna be a long show. It's about 15 minutes in. We're still at deGrom.
It's all deGrom show. Ready for this?
Yeah, episode 2.
2025. deGrom lighting it up, but Seager and Simeon hitting a combined 223. None of the prospects in the pipeline.
I know where you're going.
Doing anything.
He's back.
Leiter hasn't found it yet. Rocker's still struggling to keep it in the majors here. Rangers are
abysmal.
14 games under 500. It's Labor Day. It's Memorial Day. It's Memorial Day because now, right? Like the trade
early now.
The Yankees acquired Jacob deGrom.
You did that to me on purpose.
Yankees deGrom. We'll take that $37 million a year for the last 2.5 years.
You've been saving up. You've been good boys, eating your vegetables, and now it's time for the meats.
No, but think about it. So if you're
totally
Texas, right? If you're Texas, and if it really is that failed of an experiment, right? he's either good enough to help you slingshot and turn it around when the other pitchers come up, or he's going to be a reasonably valued guy who has like, you know, has rebuilt a track record, and you could turn around and get something for him,
Or
right?
he's hurt,
And
or
you
he's
could
hurt
get
all the
out.
time. But
Right. Well, yeah, that's the other thing, you
yeah,
know. And if he's
um,
hurt all the time, you have the insurance policy pay out his contract.
it'll be interesting to see what sort of premium that would cost. That's sort of the real way. And I'm gonna guess we can never get that. But that actually would be the fascinating one of like what's like the insurance adjusted AAV? Like how much do you have to pay to take that insurance risk off? It's almost like a CDS, frankly, or credit default swap on the guy. That would be interesting to see like what's the real sort of value of a player, a real AAV.
And the other thing too is that he gets that, you know, no state income tax deal, you know,
Which is big. Yep.
for now, right? He plays half of his games in Arlington, right?
Yep.
He gets to play the Astros twice, right? So that's like 6 more. And now you play both Florida teams on the road because everybody plays everybody. So that's another state where they don't have it, right? So he's getting less taxes taken out
Yeah.
too.
Nice little another 4 or 5% probably
Yeah.
at that level.
And he's
Nice.
a Florida boy. So maybe he goes to the Marlins at some point in this deal, or the Rays. So he could come back to haunt either one of us. All right. So that we did a lot of
We had a
deGrom.
little fun, we had a little fun on it.
Listen, my
I love
sense.
the guy. I love the guy, and I wish nothing but the best for him. And I really am sad with people like taking shots at deGrom and stuff, and like bitter Met fans kind of going out and stuff. That's ridiculous. The guy was great for us. The guy competed hard for us. He's got to do what he's got to do. Do I think he made a mistake? Yeah, maybe. I think he could have taken the Met deal. Probably got more championship recognition and so forth, and had his number hung up there. And that's probably not going to happen almost no matter what he does with the Rangers at this point. So it's a little kind of disappointing on that. I guess it put a little bit of a downer that I think that 5th year and that extra 30 mil versus being like an icon of a story franchise. But he may not be into that, right? He's always been sort of a quieter guy. He's not like he's sitting there hitting up the clubs and stuff. So maybe like, I'm chilling in Texas. I get, can hang out in the ranch and have a grand old time. And that's great, and go out and just live his life, right? I mean, that's awesome. No regrets at all. Thanks for battling the whole time, and best of luck.
My sense is that I just think it's going to be it's going to turn out better than everybody thinks.
Okay.
I am surprised that like universally people are against it. Like everybody, like nobody likes the deal.
It seems a strange sort of deal. Like even the numbers aren't a surprise. It's just a surprise it's coming from the Rangers and not the Dodgers.
I guess, yeah, I guess.
Or like the
I
Red
don't,
Sox or something like that. I
yeah,
can kind of see more than like the Rangers one. Just seems like he's just going for the dough, and hey, that's a lot of dough, right? So I don't begrudge on that, but like his counter offer wasn't that crazily different, I'm gonna guess, from the Metsies. And I don't know. Do you really kind of do it? Again, it sort of depends on what really matters to the player. And obviously, I'm sure he likes the lifestyle down there and whatever else. And oh well. But
look, all these other guys, we look at all these other contracts, right? Like, so like we said, Verlander gets 2 years. He's getting $43 million a year. There's a 3rd year option in there. So, and he's at the age now that deGrom will be at the end of that Texas contract. These guys, Verlander, Scherzer, as they've gone into their elder years here, they could afford to lose a little bit of their stuff because of this, HLP swing BS that's pervading, and knocking down batting averages all over baseball. All these guys have so many holes in their swings that these smart pitchers with great control, who also still have the velocity behind it, can just pick these guys apart day and night. And I think one characteristic that you'll see potentially is like the Verlanders, the Scherzers, the deGroms. We saw it with deGrom at the end of the year. The bugaboo, so to speak, is going to be that they're going to give up more home runs than they've given up in the past. I don't care. It doesn't matter. These are solo shots. They're very rare. Occasionally, yeah, it's going to cost you a game here and there. But for the overall performance, I'll trade these guys giving up a few extra homers for just not giving up hits or base runners, or getting at it, never getting into jams, let alone getting out of them.
It's funny. It's interesting, the description with the the 3 outcome in baseball and all that sort of stuff. And you talk about pitchers and talk about like tiring innings and stuff, right? Where it's like a tiring inning where like a guy gets on, you're having to throw over all the time, and playing the corners in, and all the small ball and stuff like that. That like exhausts pitchers. You always talk about over time, like those things, even if they make it out of it, that grinds down a pitcher. The guy who's working 3-2 counts constantly, fouling balls off. That gets guys out of games quick. And I think you've kind of really hit on that. With the newer swings and whatnot, an older guy can go and it's, yeah, you're eventually going to tag one on me. Okay. So, that's the 1 run or 2 runs or something like that. But I'm having fairly easy innings. So that's easier for these guys in the late 30s, early 40s to go out and throw that 6 or 7 for you. Like he can throw his hard 6 or 7, not working super hard, not getting exhausted out there, and give you that, what we would consider a great start these days, right? Give you that 6 innings, maybe a run or 2. And they're done and they hand it off.
Yeah. So for guys like that, like think about this, they're, the whole banning the shift thing, right?
Yeah.
Well, that's going to I don't think guys like deGrom and Verlander and Scherzer are going to be much affected by that at all. I think it might even play into their hands, because now these hitters will become even more predictable.
Yep.
Right? Because the lefties are going to just, if they're these big pull hitters, well, now there's no reason for them to try to experiment with hitting the ball to the other side. They're just going to try to mash that ball, whatever. And so a smart pitcher is going to say, okay, I know he's going to try to pull that, so I'm just not going to throw that pitch at all in this at bat. I will find another way to get him out.
Yeah, I'm throwing high and away once you pull that one down the line.
So. Yeah, go ahead, do that. So I don't think, like, whereas some of these other pitchers, like Tyler Anderson's a guy that people have talked about, who the Angels decided to go after and take from the Dodgers. Like they think like a Tyler Anderson's going to be affected by the movement, to this no shift rule. And I suppose it's possible, but we'll see. I mean, we're gonna find out probably within the first month how this thing is affecting a lot of these pitchers out there. All right, let's talk about the Mets have taken away deGrom. They've put in Verlander. Again, I think Verlander at 40. I mean, sure, great. Cy Young form, pitched his team to a World Series championship. Now you get him. He's back with Scherzer. Those two did not get along at all when they pitched together in Detroit. Apparently they hated each other, but now they're older and whatever,
And they're hyper competitive against each other.
Yeah,
which could be good.
Could be good. Could be good. Or it could be like my sweater right now, dog. So I'm not going to say, we're not going to give like a full description, but
do I have to paint the word picture?
No, you're going to not do that, because that's going to encourage just the people who are listening to go on YouTube and catch the video, because we need those YouTube subscribers to come up. We need you to
it's worth it.
You subscribe. It's totally worth it. So go check out the video, look at the sweater, hit the subscribe button, tell us that you did it on Twitter at Diamond Diehards for me, and at Jeff Healy 8. That's the number 8 for the dog. Actually, Doug, let's do a little bit quick business here. Gatto Acupuncture and Wellness in Glen Rock, New Jersey. Book online at gattoacu.com, GATTOACU.com, or call 551-212-3845. Dr. Melissa will take care of you, your health and wellness. She will do it. The Mascolo Group is serving all of your real estate needs in the Northern and Pascack Valleys in New Jersey. In fact, all of Northern New Jersey. You can go to GaryMascolo.com or call 201-615-3665. Tell them Diamond Diehards sent you. FMSgraphics.com is a family-run, family-owned business for the last 50 plus years. All of your printing and promotional needs can be taken care of in just a couple of clicks. And if you want to get the word out old school, where you want to hand stuff out to people about your business, your venture or market, whatever you're doing, then fmsgraphics.com is the place to go. And if you're going to do that and you're going to show up in front of people, you want to do it with a clean ride. So Big Ed's Car Wash in Fair Lawn, New Jersey is the place that you have to go if you're in the Bergen or Passaic County areas in New Jersey. Big Ed's Car Wash, 17-16 River Road, Fair Lawn, New Jersey. Clean and green with Big Ed. Tell him Diamond Diehard sent you. And if you don't want to run this back, or you didn't have a chance to jot it down or put it in your phone somewhere, we always put all of the information about our supporters in the description, whether you're on YouTube, Facebook, or if you just like to listen to the audio, which I do back myself anyway, on Apple Podcasts, which most of you do, or Spotify, which is where I listen to it. Go and check out the descriptions there, and you can get more information about Gatto Acupuncture, the Mascolo Group, fmsgraphics.com, and Big Ed's Car Wash. Okay, Doug. The Met other key acquisition, in addition to Verlander, they bring back Brandon Nimmo to play center. And if you want to talk about, the years and the dollars,
Whoa,
how do you,
big money.
I mean, he's a player that you and I both agree has been underrated and undervalued as a defensive player in center field. He really appeared to make a big jump there this past season. And he's also the kind of guy that projects as a top of the order hitter. Those guys that draw walks and hit for some power, even though speed is part of his game, he does project out as a guy who's not just completely speed reliant. So, is he going to live up to 8 years? That's kind of a lot to ask, but if you're going to, would you have liked 6 better? Yeah, you would have definitely liked 6 better, but he gets the 8 years at what, 23 million a year?
Yeah.
He's kind of a heart and soul of your team guy too.
Yep. This one again might have been. It's funny, we were talking to deGrom. I'd sort of done the, I'd rather have Verlander than deGrom. We were kind of kicking around. I was sort of saying the owner override on deGrom, right? I kind of thought I'd say, look, this is a statement thing, taking over the franchise. We're just going to pay him whatever. And obviously even Stevie Cohen as a limit. It feels coming right off the deGrom thing. I think that's kind of what went down with the Nimmo one. Ted Cohen's like, there's no way I can let this guy go as well. Again, he's just a great person for the franchise, within the clubhouse, for the fans, everything else like that. To have him go off to the Giants or the Rockies or whoever would just be detrimental in multiple ways to the franchise, and they just paid what they had to pay. So an overpay, yep. I think you have to sort of say that. Takes us back to talking about Springer and stuff, right? And center field and so forth. And 23 for a center fielder gets on, and everything else that is great. Age 29, right? So maybe 2 or 3 more years of that. They're gonna be hitting the 32 or so. Again, not super reliant on the speed, but it's part of the game. It keeps him to be an above average fielder, I would say, at this point. Now he's finally starting to kind of learn the jumps on the ball and so forth. Again, probably 3 or 4 years that brings that kind of speed kind of comes off. So his jumps are better, but his speed to get there is not as much. Probably brings you back down to more of an average center fielder again at that point. And then he probably eventually has to slide over to the corner. In which case he's okay. Right, I think the average on base is going to stick with him. The average, more doubles power, stuff like that. Maybe then he starts to bring it down a little bit, goes for a little bit more pop than he sort of had previously with his
Well,
career.
old man strength too, right? And as guys, the
Yeah.
one thing that we can see is after, typically the peak of a baseball player is very predictably between ages 27 and ages 32. And from there, their overall production starts to slide after 32. However, we have seen, and I'm not just talking about Barry Bonds where it was freak stuff.
Yeah.
We have seen a lot of times where players can age into much more power than they've had at other parts of their career. So he's a guy that could project like that too. He slides over after Marte's contract is up, then that opens up a spot in right or left. He moves over there. You have another center fielder by that time. And then you're talking about the last like 4 years of the contract at the same thing. And if his power numbers are, somewhere where he's hitting in the 20 something amount of homers a year, and instead of batting first or second, he's batting fifth or sixth, that's probably ends up not being so bad. So I think, again, not too much risk there. 6 years would have been ideal, or well, I mean, me, 2 years would be ideal, no matter who it is. But 6 years would have been better. 5 or 6 years would have been better. 8 is kind of what you had to do. And that's that. 5 years was Edwin Diaz, right? Like, and you sort of like don't want to gloss this over because they paid him record money for a closer. And they, because he's a closer, dog, that's the reason why they were able to limit his contract to 5 years, right? Like 5 years is
just crazy in its own right, right?
Right. Like 5 years is like a lifetime contract, it seems, for a closer.
Yeah.
But in the end, I mean, that could end up being the biggest bargain out of all these deals, and he's getting $20 million a year.
Yeah.
I think we pretty much covered it. I mean, they've made some other ads. They picked up David Robertson on a 1-year deal. He's a guy.
Quintana's a big.
Yeah, Quintana too.
So sort of swapping out Bassett, right? I mean, that was
Yeah.
that was the interesting one for the Mets, where I kind of thought coming off of last year, it was like you were shedding a lot of salary, or you were going to have to pay a ton to reload the same team same team you had, and that's kind of where they've gotten, right? So you kind of argue, maybe the starting pitch is a little bit deeper right now. Maybe the pen's a little bit weaker. A little bit more to do. But
Actually, of all these moves, one of the ones that really flew under the radar because it's a guy you never heard of is they traded Keyshawn Askew, a right-handed pitcher, for Brooks Raleigh from the Rays.
Yeah, that was a nice move.
I really like Brooks Raleigh, and
and all I even want to talk about is the fact that the guy didn't wear like the pride shirt or something. I'm like, all right, whatever.
Yeah.
That's like his thing and stuff. I'm like, well, he's actually a pretty good lefty out of the pen. Like,
yeah, he's pretty good.
I feel pretty good about this.
It's pretty good. And Quintana, look, I'm not a Quintana fan. I feel like a little smoke and mirrors with all these lefties that have showed up in St. Louis in the second half of the season each of the last 2 years and given them lightning in a bottle. They did it, 2 seasons ago with washed up guys, and you're like, okay, whatever. And then they end up, on that crazy streak to make the playoffs. And then they do it last year with Jordan Montgomery and Jose Quintana, both of whom just pitched completely out of their mind, the best baseball they've ever pitched. But they, 2 years at what, $26 million for Quintana, not really much of a risk for Steve Cohen and the boys. All right, that's enough of the Mets. We'll take that little piece on MLB there. We'll switch it from Mets to Yankees, doggy. You know what I'm doing there.
Oops. Hold on.
The
Doggy clicked something else by mistake. Hold on.
Yeah.
Where do we go here?
Well, I mean, this is an easy one, right? Like it's 2 guys.
This one.
I mean, it's Anthony Rizzo and Aaron Judge that, the possible indication on, November 15th, when cousin Anthony re-signed his 2-year deal at about a $4 million a year raise, was, that to me, that was the opening salvo, getting Rizzo right back in the fold. That was the opening salvo that they were not going to get beat on Judge. And I have to admit that, there was a time when
little nervous. Little nervous?
I was like a little nervous, but honestly, even when John Heyman tweeted that arson judge. So I mean, technically, he wasn't wrong.
He'll live that down. So, never.
But arson judge did not leave the Yankees because he was never on the Yankees because there is no arson judge. So Judge ends up at 9 years, 360 million. So he gets the 40 million per year. They were apparently at 8 years, 320 million. And the Giants were at 360 million. And then the Padres were in at the end at 400 million over 10 years. And Hal Steinbrenner, took a moment out from his Italian vacation and put the wine down for 20 minutes and called Aaron Judge and said, "You're not going anywhere. We'll go to 360 for 9." And Judge is like, "Okay, we got a deal." And it's a fait accompli that he'll be named captain. I imagine, Dog, that they'll wait for the start of the season to do that. I don't know if they'll do it in spring training. I feel like it's something that they might do on opening day or the day after opening day, something like that, maybe at the end of the game. Just to create a little extra buzz and
a little juice.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if they're going to do it in Cincinnati on a road trip like they did with Derek Jeter, where it was just kind of out of the blue and out of nowhere. What would be funny though is if they named Anthony Rizzo captain.
Now that would be a statement.
You couldn't complain. Cousin Anthony, like he does give them that bit. So you get Rizzo back in the fold. They exercise the club option on Luis Severino. Who else are they going to get at this point? I mean, they need to fortify probably the bullpen. People are talking about, is like I've heard 20 times that Benintendi is out, but I don't buy that yet. I don't like why would he just be saying no? Like why would he close off the Yankees as an option? That does not, guys, that doesn't make any sense at all. But either way, so here's one thing I found kind of funny, Dog. The Mets apparently were allegedly in on Carlos Correa, who signs this $350 million 13-year deal with the San Francisco Giants on December 13th. They agree to it. So today we do this on Wednesday, December 14th, late in the evening, and Correa, signs just a day ago. I mean, it's a crazy amount of years, but essentially he signed like the Lindor contract, except with 3 more years, right? Like but here's the thing, Dog, right? For San Francisco,
he's the first one like, wow, I'm glad I got Lindor signed when I did.
Right. Yeah,
especially the last 4 or 5. It's like, well, geez, that feels like we overpaid.
I mean, I have no idea like why they had to do it, but the thing is, like, as much as I look at that contract, I'm like, this is absurd that they're going to pay this guy till he's 41, but they're paying him just under $27 million a year for doing that, right? And now, like, we don't know what $27 million a year is going to look like in 13 years, but you would kind of figure that it's probably not going to be as bad of a hit as it sounds like it would be right now. And even right now, for some of these teams, it's not that bad of a hit. So as long as they manage around that a little bit, it's still kind of an albatross, but I think these teams are kind of coming around and saying, well,
is this the same guy who's killing the Stanton deal like forever, never, never? Now it's like 13 years for this guy. And
the Stanton deal,
especially for an infielder, I don't know.
The Stanton deal was not a good deal. Well, first of all, here's what you forget about the Stanton deal. The Yankees are only paying him like $16 million a year out of that deal. It's just that the rest of it counts against the luxury tax. So in terms of their actual dollars that they're paying out, they're really paying him, well, I mean, based on last year, they're kind of paying him for even more than whatever his production was. But they're for dollar, they're paying him like $16 million a year, but he counts against the luxury tax. So when they go over, it's like, his dollars that they're not paying him, if they go $11 million over the luxury tax, it's kind of they're paying Stanton what he'd be getting anyway. But that wasn't a good deal. So here's the deal that I think I'm going to use Trey Turner as the example, 300 million, 10 years or 11 years with the Phillies, right? Something like that. So Trey Turner starts out as a shortstop. Fine. He projects over, we already know he could play second base. So he could play shortstop a few more years, totally projects over then as a second baseman. And because of his athleticism, to me, you also have the option of doing a Robin Yount with him. He totally projects as a guy who could play the outfield and play it really, really well. So I feel like you have a way better chance of like getting a long run out of a guy like Trey Turner because you don't have to have him at multiple positions. Carlos Correa, I do not see that as being the case. I just don't see it. Aaron Judge at 9 years is, that contract already looks not nearly as bad with these other guys signing because these other guys are going to be a year or two older than he is. But what's interesting, dog? You look at guys of his ilk, very few of whom have, really, I guess he's, in terms of size, he's like the actual kind of biggest in terms of height, plus weight. But Dave Winfield, right? Similar kind of body type.
Yep.
Dave Winfield was still good very late into his 30s. Now, he wasn't like the guy that was, contending for a batting title with Mattingly in 84 or, this big force, but he was still real productive. And the Blue Jays definitely thought he was productive enough and, kept him around. He helped him get rings north of the border. Right. So if you look at like Dave Winfield as a comp to Aaron Judge,
that's interesting.
Okay, 40 million. It's not, he's not going to be worth 40 million in the last 4 or 5 years of the deal, but he might be worth more than that in the first 3 or 4. I mean, just for the box office, the theater and the production and everything else. And not to mention, like, you do get the bang for your buck off the field where he's, some guys like are fine off the field. Some, you got to worry about a little bit. He's like completely the opposite. He's like a guy that you want to put at the front of your organization. Like he's just, he's got that part of it, right? Like he doesn't mind doing it. He's never getting you in trouble. He's probably even a little more out there than Jeter. So you got him as the face of your franchise for the next 9. Again, I liked,
Big Daddy is a good call out, by the way. I kind of really like that one on there.
Yeah,
30, age 38, 39, 40, OPS 814, 798, 867. Do you probably take that and feel okay about that with Judge? Corner outfield at that point?
Yeah, I don't know
maybe
if
maybe a little upside in there.
Yeah, I don't know if he was let's see, was he still playing D at that point? He still was.
Right field in 38 and DH. Right field and DH primarily in 90 at age 40. But some right field. Enough to get the Silver Slugger in right field. and DH.
Yeah, age 40, Silver Slugger.
Age 41, 767 OPS. Still not terrible.
Age 40, 5th in the MVP voting and a Silver Slugger in right field.
Take that
for the champion Jays.
Yeah.
Right?
88 Yanks. So we saw that card in Strat a bunch. 927 OPS, All-Star, 4th MVP voting. Age 36.
Yeah.
Not a bad comp at all, I think.
Yeah. And a guy like Judge has more home run power, right? But Winnie was, a hell of a player.
Yeah. Higher average, right? So that's where it's a little different. Right? That's like the older school, new school, right? So more average, a little less power. Different way to get to the OPS. Guy who would tire a guy out more, right? As we were sort of saying, right? Big Daddy would definitely do that to guys. So, not a ton of walks, I guess.
Actually, Judge
For
career,
but
career
more average versus back then, though, I guess.
Judge career batting average 284, Winfield career batting average 283.
There you go.
Interesting.
That is interesting.
And I don't. Let's see. Do they come up as?
That's
as
surprising. I would
comps
not. I
on
would not
Baseball
have guessed.
Reference?
I would not have guessed. Judge's average is that high. I mean, it's such a great year this year that I guess we
They
must
do
yank
not.
it up.
They do not come up in any of the Baseball Reference similarity scores. But to me, this is Risen the Dog kind of taken. I mean, and you know, I love the analytics and the stats and all that comparison and stuff. But like, this is like an eye test kind of thing for me too.
Yeah,
But
that's
I
true.
think the stats do back it up to some degree there.
I
that
think I'm gonna guess they kind of in like the similarity scores too. I'm gonna guess there's a little bit of it kind of puts like guys in the era kind of closer.
Well,
to
I
it,
think
right?
Judge's walk rate is the thing that kind of
Yeah.
changes his profile a lot. Like that's why he comes up. Number one comes up as Juan Soto. Number two, Kyle Schwarber.
Yeah.
Like those guys. Although number
I
three
guess
is
the guy-
Yoenis Cespedes.
yeah, it's a little bit older.
Yoenis Cespedes comes up, and he was not a guy that walked like.
Yeah,
a
yeah. I'm
ton,
just like
but-
I'm looking at like the Big Daddy ones here. So he said, like Eddie Murray. That was like, all right, Al Kaline, Yaz, Robinson. Sorry. So I guess they do go across.
Yeah,
They do go across eras.
they do. They do.
So
All right. The Judge part we did. Now, we started to, there's other guys that are still out there. We'll just wait for those guys to land someplace and we could worry about them then. But the Correa thing was kind of like I was a little bit dumbstruck by it, and I was like, what are they doing? Like, who are they bidding against? But you know what? There's still a few teams that are out there. And like I don't know why the Mets or the Yankees would have been in on him. And I'm not surprised that he ended up in San Francisco. I just didn't think that they had to pay him, for that much money for that many years. Like I'd rather have Xander Bogaerts for that many years at like 280 million. And like probably they didn't even have to pay him that much or that many years. And, like he's not nearly the defensive player that Correa is. Although I think Bogaerts is actually underrated defensively. Like I know Strat had him as like a 4 last season and they just revealed that he's going to be a 2 based on this past season. I think that's like much more like it.
they were obviously listening to our show last year.
Yeah, they were.
You're watching the Nimmo score. That's going to come through.
So
the dog called him out on that.
Our next show will be with Jerry Milani, the Stratomatic annual baseball ratings extravaganza. We will try to keep it to under 2 hours this year.
If you're listening to this, you have a problem.
Yeah, but dog, that was
you love it.
Up until the Ray Montgomery interview and if you haven't heard that, go back and check it out. And Jeff Pearlman, Ray Montgomery, the bench coach for the Anaheim Angels. Up until that one, the Stratomatic episode was the #1 episode this year.
Nice.
Diehards. Is that crazy? I'm like, what?
It had staying power. It just kept going up. It
did. So on the chat, Arson Judge lights up the hot stove. Mike Serra.
Nice.
I didn't use it, Mike.
He's been waiting for that forever.
I laid low in the weeds. I was hoping Mike Serra. I put it in the Fordham chat, and Mike Serra comes through. He got his line in. Schmitty wants to know where Dog's Christmas sweater is. He didn't know, Schmitty. I was surprising him with this one. And Mike Serra says, we need Carlos Rodon to make up for the loss of Jordan Montgomery. I concur, although we do still have Frankie Montas kind of in that spot. So we'll see how that happens. I know one's a righty, one's a lefty. Also, I feel like me and Carlos Rodon are the only people who seem to know that his name is Rodon because everybody else calls him Rondon or Rendon, but it's Rodon with the stress on the second. Rodon. even though he's from like North Carolina, so he doesn't have like you know, like he's like a good old boy accent.
We don't really have to rule as ours.
No. Although I love that. I love to say his name in, with the accented Spanish way,
There you
But
go.
let's see. I want to clear this thing and then get this tracker back. Okay, so we got some interesting ones there, dog. Cody Bellinger signs with the Cubs. It's a 1-year deal. I mean, that's a flyer. His swing is completely broken. He's one of these guys that's like been an MVP and just fell off the face of the earth. Let's see.
Kiermaier is a guy I was hoping the Mets would get for some outfield depth and fielding, but
yeah, but
kept Nimmo instead. Can't cry. That was I guess that was more of a fallback.
Once you kept Nimmo, I mean, what's your
Yeah.
need for a left-handed hitting defensive center fielder at that point,
Yeah.
So, and I guess the Jays had been in on Cody Bellinger, but they signed Kiermaier for less. Truth be told, the production is probably about the same between those guys. In fact, Kiermaier might have even been better the last couple of years. Let's see.
Kenley Jansen becomes your problem instead of my problem.
Yeah, so Kenley Jansen.
I always thought that guy was overrated, though. I wouldn't be surprised the Yankees actually smack him around a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, he's been pretty good though.
He was strong. Last year he was crazy strong. Before that, I always kind of thought he was a little overrated.
Yeah, well, I mean, he did have that dip,
Yeah.
But he's really been pretty good the last couple of years, especially this last year with Atlanta. And they lose him, but like they traded for Rizzo Iglesias and he just walks into their closer role. So they didn't really have to spend the money on him. And if they want to fortify their bullpen, they could do it underneath Iglesias now. So that was kind of a strategic deal that was made a year in advance, and Iglesias is signed for 4 more years, I think. Let's see, the Giants, in addition to Correa, they also signed Ross Stripling and Sean Manaea. So those are two guys. That I felt like, well, more so Manaea. I felt that he was being slept on a little bit. I know he really didn't have such a good year after the trade from Oakland to San Diego this year, but I kind of felt like I would rather have him than Jose Quintana, even though Jose Quintana pitched much, much, much better last year. I would rather have taken a chance on Manaea. Stripling, he's fine. He's an innings guy. The Guardians signed Josh Bell, so that was a guy that you figured that the Padres were renting, but he's kind of like a perfect guy for the Guardians to sign, right? Like he just fills right into that spot, switch hitter, first baseman. Guy likes to ball out. It looks like a winning player, right? Like he's won in Washington. He was part of the Padres' good run there, had a couple of clutch hits in a big spot. There was that trade where Sean Murphy goes to Atlanta. William Contreras, whose brother, well, we'll get to him, just signed left the Cubs to go to the Cardinals and replace Yadier Molina.
Was that the three-way?
Yeah, three-way though.
Little throwback there.
Esteury Ruiz went in that deal. He ends up, I think he ended up from Milwaukee to Oakland. Contreras ends up in Milwaukee. Murphy ends up in Atlanta. Joel Payamps ends up going from Oakland to Milwaukee. So I think he was acquired in one of the deals that the A's had last year. So they spun him around. Manny Pena ends up in Oakland from Atlanta. It's whatever. Go look that one up. Mets lost Trevor Williams, though. That was
that hurt.
They move on from him. He goes to the Nationals. Bogarts, we talked about, 11-year deal, $280 million, leaves Boston to go to San Diego. Now the thing is, do the Red Sox just move Trevor Story back from second base to shortstop, where why not just do that? And plus they already have a guy that could sit there and play second base. I don't know why the Red Sox have to jump into the shortstop free agent market here, unless they get Dansby Swanson and they really decide that they absolutely need him and want him. Like I wouldn't bother if I was the Red Sox. I would just move Story over there. He's his shorts. That was like the plan to begin with. You sign that guy. He didn't get that massive money that the other guys got. He got what, 6 years, 160 or something. And and he kind of just had to take whatever was on the market for him. And now you could just move him back to shortstop and you end up with a better defensive shortstop. And, if he goes back to hitting the way that he did, in Colorado or thereabouts, he's probably not quite worth it, but it doesn't look so bad, right?
Yep.
And you got other guys there to play second. So I really wouldn't at this point bother if I was the Red Sox to go, diving back into that market. Wilson Contreras, we just talked about it. They get their Yadier Molina replacement. They get him from the rival Cubs, 5-year deal. I really thought Wilson Contreras was going to be back with the Cubs, the way that him and Ian Happ at deadline, the game on the day of the trade deadline, they were hugging each other, emotionally in the dugout. Both guys thought they were going to be gone. Neither guy was, but now Contreras ends up leaving. So I'm surprised that the Cubs didn't just, open up the checkbook for him, but I don't know.
Yeah, they're constantly a surprise, right? You can never kind of tell what the Cubs are doing. Like it seems like they're all in, they're totally going for it, and they're just spitting half it back out, and you can never get a sense of which way they're leaning on that one with that franchise, to me at least.
Well, the one place you shouldn't let him go to was St. Louis because they would have had a hole at catcher where they haven't had a hole for 20 years. So now you just screwed that up, guys. Andrew Heaney was the guy that was, on the move from the Dodgers to Texas. So that was another one that wasn't really talked about that much. So if you're talking about, we didn't mention it. We did the whole opening segment on deGrom. We did a lot of Texas Rangers. So Shegon Nation, if you're the Texas fans and you've been checking us out, then hopefully we gave you a nice little nugget here of content today. But, not bad. Like Heaney didn't really impress me when he was with the Yankees, but he's done kind of well. And he was a big prospect when he was first coming up. I think he was a Marlin high draft pick. But let's see what happens there. deGrom, Heaney, John Gray, a guy I know you like a lot. You wanted John Gray for the Mets last year, and a couple other guys. Martin Perez, right, is there. So who knows? Maybe Texas surprises. The other teams in that division that are not the Astros. We talked to Ray Montgomery about the Angels trying to slingshot, where if the Angels figure it out, they might just, be able to contend right for the division. Well, who says Texas can't do it? Who says the Mariners, won't keep up this this steady climb as well? So we'll see what happens there if it means anything. Trey Turner, we kind of touched on him a little bit, so we'll move on from him. Let's see if we missed anybody else here, dog. I don't think we did.
Did we talk Noah? What was that before? Thor going to the Dodgers?
No, that kind of like just happened. Mitch Haniger was another guy that the Giants on. So the Giants were kind of busy. I mean, I don't know if they're going to jump back and become a 107 win team again, but they've at least tried to add some more guys. I actually like Mitch Haniger a lot, and they really didn't pay much for him at all. 3 years, I think something like 15 million and change per season for him. It's interesting. The Orioles have tried to get in on a bunch of these guys, and they haven't been able to land anybody besides Kyle Gibson. But that was kind of like a good guy for them to land. He was not so great for the Phillies. His ERA was over 5, but he's one of those guys that if he's in the right situation, like in Baltimore, he could give them some more innings at the back of the rotation, and they need that to help some of these young guys, I think, really excel in their other roles. Clayton Kershaw goes back to the Dodgers for a year. Mike Clevenger was one of the early guys that jumped. He was on the Padres after coming off his Tommy John surgery. And that was this past year. He was, not the Clevenger of old, but he jumps to the White Sox. the Yankees lost Miguel Castro to Arizona. That's the only reason why I'm mentioning that. Former Met, former Yankee, current Diamondback. I mean, that's that's inside baseball, Susan. I want to see. Let's see. I keep going back. There was the Jesse Winker for Colton Wong trade. Winker was, that's an interesting one, dog. So Seattle just lets him go. He was horrible for the Mariners last year. He's a guy you always have felt like he's one of these guys that could just get out of bed and just get you 3 hits. He was like despised in the Mariner locker room last year. Like it was really bad. It's a weird story. Like I don't know what exactly was going on, but to get Colton Wong from the Brewers, and he's like a Gold Glove type second baseman who can, he hits a little, he runs a little, he fields great. So the Mariners looking for the chemistry experiment there, trying to do addition by subtraction just by getting rid of Winker, and also doing a pretty good job by getting Wong, who, teammates always seem to really, really like him an awful lot. Your guy, J-Mark Candelario, leaves the Tigers and goes to the Nationals. He'll probably switch hit home runs in a game against the Mets at some point this year, right?
Of course he will.
Of course he will. And the one that literally happened like right as we were coming on was Thor. Noah Syndergaard leaves the Phillies and goes to the Dodgers on a 1-year deal. I believe a reported $13 million was that one. So Thor, it was not too impressive this season. Couldn't hold down really a rotation spot. Was kind of a spot starter. Had some good moments with the Angels, but didn't have the strikeouts up where we were used to seeing
didn't
them.
have the speed back.
Yeah, but listen, that
Takes
first
a while, right?
that first year, we've seen guys jump right back into it like Verlander, but most guys, a lot of guys have recovered from it and eventually been better, but they do need that first year. So we'll see if again, it could be a buy low, and you never know what's going to happen with the Dodgers, because you got you got so much movement over there, and
yeah, that makes sense. That signing makes sense to me, kind of all around.
And you still
good pitching coaches, everything else like that. That's a good move for Syndergaard. And not a bad flyer for the Dodgers too.
No, not bad. And the elephant in the room that nobody ever wants to talk about is Trevor Bauer, right? Like at some point what do they do? Like, do they have to start paying him again? Like, is he suspended? Is he not suspended? Like is he, okay, you don't want him anymore, but like you're still on the hook for $43 million. Like, did the contract pause? Is he fine? Does he lose it? Like there's still some questions that we don't even want to discuss the guy, right? Like we don't want to discuss him, but it's how baseball is, right? If somebody's willing to pay Carlos Correa to play shortstop till he's 41 years old at $27 million a year, then somebody's probably going to be willing to have Trevor Bauer on their baseball roster to try to pitch and win them games, so at some point, I guess we'll talk about it, but it's still some kind of factor in there where they got to figure it out. Did we cover it all, Doc? Did we cover it all in this? In this quick hits
short episode.
This quick hits with Diamond Diehards.
I was trying to describe to my buddy work like it's just more of a long form guy.
Yeah,
that's our thing. That's okay.
Yeah, it's more of a long. We're not doing 5-minute pinball videos here.
No.
Okay,
this ain't TikTok.
Hey, TikTok.
We do have a couple TikToks out there. You can search it up.
I'm gonna pimp our buddy Taz Pinball on YouTube. If you care at all about pinball, go check out Taz Pinball, TAZ Pinball on YouTube. Subscribe to us first, but then check out these cool little videos that our buddy Ted has started to do. I don't really care that much about pinball, but the videos have been pretty good. So check him out over there. There's your free prop, Ted. Took you an hour to get it. I made you wait. Now I get to tell. That's the best part, dog. Now I get to tell him, dude, I was talking about your pinball show on the air, and he's gonna have to listen to the whole fucking show just to get to this part. All right, that's going to do it. Follow us everywhere on social media at Diamond Diehards. Follow the dog on Twitter at Jeff Healy 8. That's the number 8. And we really need the subscriptions. Like, we really need you to subscribe. And you're going to really want to, because you're not going to want to miss the Stratomatic Ratings Bonanza episode, which is upcoming. Dog and I will be joined by our pal Jerry Milani, and we are going to go over painstakingly all the Stratomatic
what was he last year?
Yeah, we're gonna it's gonna be brutal. We might have to do like a 6-part show where we do one division per show and just do it that way. I might have to do that.
Not a bad idea.
Might have to do that. We could do it kind of like in one sitting and then just release it day after day after day after day. Maybe we should do that.
The one you've been waiting for. Yeah, exactly.
We'll talk offline.
Quick hit. Quick hit, AL West.
Yeah, AL West. AL West. Mike Trout's a 3. Right. That's the end of it. That's all the time we have now. Shohei Ohtani is an A bunter. That's all the time we have now. All right. Yeah, that's good. So yeah, go do the subscriptions, pimp,
like and share. Tell a friend to tell a friend.
Our sponsors.
Tell a lot of friends.
Like we actually
a lot
do.
Of friends.
It does make a huge difference if you subscribe to us. It really does. Like, even if you watch the live streams on YouTube, it's like huge if you go to Apple Podcasts and you subscribe to us there. If you're not just like, if you're watching on YouTube, hit that subscribe button. It does make a legitimate difference to what we're trying to do. So if you've done it already, we appreciate it. And if not, please do. All right, that's going to do it for another episode of the show, The Hot Stove in Full Effect. For the dog, Jeff Healy, this is Joe Rizzo. Diamond Diehards is out.